Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2021 Open Championship DFS Tactics Show. Lots to get into, so the only real announcement that I have, as always, all statistics provided by FantasyNational.com. Say it every show. It wouldn't be possible without it. Amazing resource, guys. Go invest in it. It's going to make you a lot better DFS player. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler, much smarter than me, which is what you want. Guys, as always, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. All the support's appreciated. Lots to get into with the British Open or Open Championship teeing off in about 6 hours. So let's get into it. And we'll transition over here and look at the model that I have built, and I haven't tweaked it since Monday's Data Dive show. By the way, if you didn't check out the Barbasol Championship full show that I did last night, go check it out. Lots of good information there. Don't forget that is it's an alternate field event, but it's still going on. Betting options, DFS contest happening. And there's a lot of potential money to be made there when the favorite at the Barbasol is 16-1. That tells you the kind of prices that you're going to get at the Barbasol. So, indeed, go check it out. Lots of good information in there using Fantasy National. I haven't updated the odds today, but I don't imagine that they've moved all terribly much with almost majority of the almost all of the focus on the Open Championship is what I meant to say. But we're here for the Open Championship and the DFS portion, so let's dive right in. As you can see here with my data model, we've got, I have off the tee at 5%, approach 20, putting 10. I think avoiding bogeys is going to be very crucial this week. The wind's going to play havoc. If people can save their pars, it's going to allow them to, honestly, I think pars will be rising in the leaderboard. I imagine even par might finish, it'll easily finish top 10. That is my guess for this week at the Open Championship. So I wanted to see who can avoid the bogeys. You're going to have to play out of the fairway as you do most often, but especially over there if you're in the gorse and the fescue and the shit. I don't care if you're Bryson DeChambeau on steroids for a lot. You're not going to play out of it. For those who miss fairways or miss greens, you're going to have to scramble your way around. I wanted to see some of that. Par 4, since it's a par 70, only 2 par 5s. The normal par 4 par 3s. You got 2 more par 4s. I want to see who plays par 4s well. Majority of those are at this length. And even though the greens are huge, so greens in regulation I felt was going to be an inflated statistic this week. I want to see who avoids 3 putts. So there's the reasoning behind the model. The percentages could certainly be adjusted, and so on and so forth. This is what I have as my rankings. Abraham Answer actually tops out at number 1. A little surprising that he's fully up top of the leaderboard, but he's been playing well. He doesn't have a bad statistic, as you can see. His worst, he's still a bit above average for the field, and that's scrambling. He's 5th in strokes gained putting. He's 1st and 2nd in par 4s and of the length. There's a lot going for Abraham Answer this week. Am I saying he's going to win the tournament? No. But from a DFS portion, on the metrics that I am looking at, for $7,600 in salary, you can't beat it. Just to take a quick look at his ownership projection, and we'll go through this pretty heavily here since it's almost lock time. Abraham Answer is only at 9%. So in his price range, Daniel Berger's at 12 and a little bit over 12.5%, and he's 200 lower or 200 less in salary. But around him, there's not a lot of ownership. So I won't call Abraham Answer a pivot, per se, but I like where I like where he is sitting in ownership projections. Obviously, in the statistics, I like where he's at, being number one. So I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Abraham Answer this week in DFS. We'll have my betting card at the end. I've got a little bit of exposure to him as well in outright betting. But let's go through here and just sort by salary here. I always forget to mention it in the intro, but guys, I've got live chat up. Jump into chat. Let me know what you're looking at in these final hours before the Open Championship tees off. Is there something that you kind of desperately want to see that might be a tiebreaker in your lineups, or what kind of strategy are you going for? Are you going for stars and scrubs? Are you going for a balance? Give me your top play in the 6K range. I just kind of interact with me here. Let's see what you all want and throw some ideas off each other, because that's what we're here for. We're trying to win. So of what I will call the premier tier, or the top tier, guys over 10K, the pivot is Dustin Johnson. He's at 8%. The highest is Brooks at 17. Probably no surprise if you're getting a $600 600 discount on John Rahm, and he's the major killer for a reason. I'm actually going to come off my custom stat model and just go to strokes gained for the past 24 rounds. There's a reason he's second in the of the big five for strokes gained total. He's been playing well, not fantastic, but well enough to warrant ownership by all means. A little less interest in Rahm, but still a lot at 14.5. So it looks like DJ's the pivot in this range at 8%, and then you have Rory at 10.5. The other three are pretty chalky, which is it makes sense when you're needing at an Open Championship, a major, but especially an Open. The best players are generally going to win. Majority of the time, these are the best players in the world. You're going to want to have some exposure to them. So with DJ at 8% and the amount of discount, I wouldn't be. I don't know how much exposure I'm going to have to DJ, but he is certainly the pivot. And I'm just going to be honest. I don't know how much I'm going to use in this range. It seems like a lot of guys are starting their team, up top and then kind of working their way down in they're doing a 10K guy. It looks like a low 9, and then working their way down into the high 7s. At least what it seems like. If they're not using a 10K guy, then they're using two upper tier 9s, 9.6, 9.7, 9.9, and then working their way down. But in the 10Ks, if I'm going to have a lot of exposure or any exposure, I'm going to use Rahm. Yes, he's the most expensive. He's the favorite in the tournament for a reason. The guy's just playing unbelievable golf lately. He should have won 2 tournaments, within the last month and a half or so. Unfortunate situation with his COVID test, but all that aside, he's just playing. He's playing fantastic golf. I am going to use Rahm majority of the time if I'm going to venture up here. I'm not sure how much I'm going to venture into the 10K range. I apologize. I clicked on strokes gained total instead of keeping it on salary. So yeah, it seems like people are generally using somebody up here in the 10Ks, and DJ's the pivot. And there's no reason DJ can't win this tournament by any means. Now, certainly he is the lowest in strokes gained total of the 5 premier guys. He has not particularly hit his irons or been around the green, played around the green well. But generally, DJ plays around the green pretty well. His irons have been suspect in the past, and he's definitely going through a cold streak right now. I'll bring up his chart here. He's generally pretty darn good in the wind. It's DJ. You know he's going to gain strokes when the field gets difficult. But like I'm saying here, he's generally pretty darn good around the green. I'm not saying he's all world or anything. He's been historically, pretty good, and he's had a pretty bad run here of around the green performance. His irons have always been hit and miss. That's the one thing about DJ. He's always been hit and miss with his irons. So if you catch him on a cold week, you might get a made cut, but it certainly isn't going to be awe-inspiring. Nothing like a top 5 finish is what you're kind of banking on using a premier top of the line salary player when you're picking DJ or anyone similar to that. So it's a tough call to make because he's certainly playing the worst of the 5, but he's the pivot of the 5. So that's the risk assessment that you need to make. I'll certainly have a little bit of DJ. I just don't know how much. The fact that he is the pivot is more enticing than if I'm looking just straight at the raw numbers. But for me, if I'm going in a DFS perspective here, I would probably rank Rahm, probably Brooks second, and then Rory, Xander, and DJ. Even though Xander is higher than Rory in strokes gained, I still think there is some advantage to being a Euro, even though Rory plays a lot over here, obviously. But I don't want to get too much on the Euro narrative and all that stuff. But there's something to be said. Rory's past performance, other than in 2019 when he just had that horrendous first round and fought his way back to almost make the cut. I mean, you can't argue 3 top 5s before that. And certainly Xander's been no slouch. Not insinuating that, but he certainly has a top 5, but he has a top 20 in a fairly mediocre performance. Where other than the miscut, Rory has been outstanding at the Open Championship. So that's why I have Rory ahead of Xander. Brooks is Brooks. I mean, he's the major killer for a reason. I mean, his performances there show you. I'm still taking Rahm number 1. He's the best. In my mind, he's the best player in the world right now. If we move down into the 9Ks, let's see. Let me look at my software and make sure I'm not overpassing it. Yep. Going into the 9Ks, you've got the chalky right now is Jordan Spieth at 20%. So it seems like people are going with Rahm, Brooks, Xander, or Spieth, and maybe trying to fit a Xander-Spieth lineup together, which is going to be fairly common, I would think. I think Xander-Spieth is going to be a fairly common starting lineup for a lot of people. And you can't argue against using Spieth. I mean, his worst statistic by strokes gained is 29th in the field. That's spectacular. Not granted, he's second overall due to Colin Morikawa's just. Hall of Fame doesn't even begin to describe Colin Morikawa's irons. He's probably one of the best ball strikers we have ever seen. Pay homage to Tiger and all that. Colin Morikawa is, at a young age, world class with his irons, and that's why he's perennially going to be number 1 in strokes gained. But beyond that, Jordan Spieth's just been. It's been a resurgent year. Fantastic. This is the Jordan Spieth of 16 and 17 when he was in contention. Oh shit, here he comes. So you can't argue against using him, but at almost 20%, as much as I like Jordan Spieth and I want to use him, I'm going to try to gain leverage around this area. For example, I'm not going to do it with Bryson. Bryson's only at 5%. I'm just out on Bryson this week, and I'll eat you can clip it, you can do whatever. I'll eat it. eat crow, whatever. If he, plays well or wins or whatnot, but I'm just out on Bryson this week. I don't see it happening. Certainly he could make the cut. Not going to dispute that, but I just don't see a path to a premier finish, and I'm talking top 5, maybe top 10, but premier finish from Bryson. I just don't see it this week, especially with the way the wind is supposed to pick up. He's certainly strategic enough to handle the course. I don't think he hits enough fairways to play to the strategy that he wants. That's just my call. That's just my opinion. I'm not there this week. Morikawa is the second lowest owned in the entire 9K region at 10% or a little under. Hovland's at 10%. Hovland's an interesting case because he's never played the Open Championship. Neither has Morikawa. The Morikawa we've seen is a major, he's a major champion. Hovland's a wild card for me this week. I was really, really heavily on him at the U.S. Open. He withdrew. I don't know what to expect from Victor. He's clearly one of the top talents in the world. I don't know what to do with him. Kind of like when Matthew Wolff came back. I just didn't know what to do. I mean, Matthew Wolff's clearly a top tier talent, but he hadn't played. So it's not that Hovland hasn't played. It's just we've never seen him at the Open Championship. So if you have a strong feeling, either fade or use. Not going to argue against you. I would love to actually hear in the comments, in chat, how are you leaning on Hovland? Because I don't know how to assess him this week. But Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland are the quote pivots. I mean, that's really only at 10%. Like, that's not a great pivot. The rest of these guys are extremely chalky. Hatton's at 12.5%, Louis at 11.5%. Justin Thomas is at 12 and Spieth at 19. So a lot of people are gravitating to this end of the upper tiers spectrum. Perhaps they're trying to fit like a Rahm and a Hatton, or like I said, a Xander and a Spieth, maybe a Spieth and a Louis. The top tier here, for obvious reasons, is getting a lot of play. It's getting a lot of play. So if you're going to find leverage, if you're going to find win equity, if you're going to find your uniqueness, it's going to have to come in other places in the salary. And I think I have a couple of places you can look. That's why I'm here, to try to help. Then again, everything I could be saying is shit, and you should absolutely always go with your gut instinct and what you feel comfortable with. It is your money. It is your your contest that you're putting on the line. So again, I'm just here to try to help show you what I'm seeing in the data. But I think if for me in this range, I'm certainly going to have a lot of Louis exposure. I mean, it's an Open Championship, Euro, whatnot. As much as I love Spieth, seeing 20%, which I believe is the highest ownership. Scrolling down here, yeah, absolutely the highest ownership. Not really close. I mean, Brooks, it's at 17, but 2 percentage points is pretty big. So I think I have to just fade Spieth just on that alone. And it's nothing against the player. I'm trying to gain leverage against the other contestants. Again, I don't know what to do with Hovland. I'll certainly have some Morikawa, and he's the lowest owned in the 9Ks, other than Bryson, which I've told you I'm completely out. It seems like a lot of people have the same opinion. So if you're comfortable using Bryson, you're going to gain a lot of leverage on people. A lot of leverage. I'm just not going to do it. I can't get there. So there's the 9Ks. It's all pretty darn chalky except for Bryson. Moving down to the 8Ks, it's really sad for me to say this. Patrick Reed is the heavy chalk in this range. I'm all over Patrick Reed this week. This might be the chalk I'm willing to eat. You want to talk about Brooks being a big game hunter, major killer. Patrick Reed might not have the number of majors and all that stuff, and people hate Patrick Reed. You either love him or hate him. I get that, but you can't deny his talent. You cannot deny his talent, and he plays well in big tournaments. I'm all over Patrick Reed. Patrick Cantlay's somebody that I was surprised to see rate out as well as he does. A lot of people are on him too. He's at 13.5, but Patrick Reed's at 16%. Surprisingly, Paul Casey doesn't rate out all that well. I know he's ranked 13th in strokes gained total. He actually has not played the Open Championship all that well, which is really surprising considering he's an Englishman and all that. But other than a tie for 11th in 2017, I mean, you have a lot of very, very middling to bad performances and a miscut. So Paul Casey is a narrative that people want to believe in because he's an Englishman, and he's still at 9%, but I'm not there, not this week, and I love Paul Casey. I use him a lot, even when he's chalky. I'm not using him this week, so there's a lot of leverage, or I'm gaining whatever leverage on the 9% that are using him. Of course, Hideki has withdrawn. Please don't use him. Please don't use him. Will Zalatoris, he's only at 3%, and I kind of understand why. He's been great in majors, but this doesn't seem like it'll fit him very well. Even by strokes gained total, he's 75th. He's actually worse in my stat model. I can't advocate using Will Zalatoris. I just can't. Finau's at 9.5. Webb Simpson is only at 5%. I'm actually fairly comfortable using Webb. It wouldn't seem like this is a great course fit for Webb. I'm okay with it, and seeing the 5%, I'm okay using Webb. I don't want to have a lot of exposure to Webb, but I'm certainly willing to pivot to Webb in this range if I'm going to make someone in this range fit my team that I'm constructing. Scheffler is the big key, or a big chalk play in the low 8s. He's at 12%, and then you've got Adam Scott, Justin Rose, and Tommy Fleetwood all below 8.5%. I'm okay using Tommy. He hasn't been playing great as of late, but I'm okay using Tommy Fleetwood, especially since Englishman plays great in the wind, which is supposed to be really, really windy, and we'll check the wind out at the end of this show as close as we can to tee off time. He didn't play great at the U.S. Open. I mean, his form is not terrible, and he's known for hitting his irons. So I do believe his irons will come back. Now, he has been certainly hit and miss with the irons as of late, and his iron game has not translated well over into the States. But over in Europe, he is still hitting his irons well. So I have no doubt that Tommy Fleetwood will perform well this week at the Open Championship. How well, that's up for debate. But I'm certainly comfortable using Tommy Fleetwood at $8,000 salary. And if you look at his performance in Open Championships, the past 3, he's gotten better and better. Tied for 27th, tied for 12th, and a solo second when Shane Lowry won. So, yeah. And speaking of Shane Lowry, I know we're not in the 7Ks yet, but this is a reason why I will fade Shane Lowry outright. Just complete fade. Congratulations to Shane Lowry. It was a wonderful story. He deserved to win. He played great that week. You can't argue miscut, and then a first. One of these 5 results is an outlier. You tell me which one. Do I think he flat out misses the cut? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, if you're going to balance these 5 results, I mean, Shane Lowry's a top, 30, 35 player in the world. I would think he would have a somewhat middling performance, something like a tie for 43rd. He plays well, tie for 20. I don't see him having another top 10 this week. I don't. And I'll eat crow if he does. And I'll lose a lot of DFS contests if he does. But trying to stay in the 8K real quick, like I said, I'm comfortable going to Tommy. I'm comfortable going to Webb Simpson in the low 8K range. Tony Finau, I like, but again, if I can get 4% less ownership on Webb, comfortable going there. I do want to have some exposure to Tony Finau, though. I think he'll play well. Now, the last time I said this, I thought he would play very well at Torrey at the U.S. Open, and well, that shot me in the ass. So, hey, and it sucks that Patrick Reed is so chalky, but I'll eat it. I'll eat it this week. I'm all over Patrick Reed this week. I'm not saying he's going to win, but he's absolutely worth every dollar of that 8,800 in my eyes. Absolutely. Moving to the 7Ks. Let's do this upper 7Ks. Matthew Fitzpatrick's the overwhelming chalk here in the upper sevens at 11.5%. You got Shane Lowry at 10. Jason Day at 8.5, which I don't see. I mean, I know he's played opens well, but I can't get there. I mean, he's played them well in the past. I'm not arguing that. Not arguing that at all. But I'm not there. 56th in strokes gained total over the last 24 rounds. It's not that he plays bad in the wind, but it's not his most comfortable. He's pretty good on bent. I'll give him that. His form's okay. Against his last two tournaments have been pretty good, albeit against, I will say, below average PGA Tour competition. He made the cut at the PGA. Anytime you make the cut at a tournament, I'm not going to knock it. Or at a major, not at a tournament. At a major, I'm not going to knock it. It's tough to do. I don't know. I'm just not there on Jason Day this week. Just not there. And then Abraham Answer's at 9%, which I'll go to Abraham Answer. You saw he's number one in my statistics model, 7,600. He could be 15%. Him and Patrick Reed are two people that if it would have to be close to 20% for me to get off of them. What did I say earlier? Patrick Reed's at 15.8, 16%. I'm still all over it. So yeah, it would have to be upwards of Spieth territory for me to get off Answer and Reed this week. So yeah, Answer's my number one play in the upper sevens at 76. I actually don't mind Joaquin Niemann and Mark Leishman. I really don't. Leishman hasn't been playing great lately, but he's from Australia. Australians usually play pretty darn well in the wind. It's supposed to be windy as fuck over there, so I don't mind using Leishman, and he's certainly a pivot. It's a dice roll because his form has not been great lately. Clearly, when you see all the red here, his form's not been great. Again, it's just a bit of a gut feeling. I don't mind going to Mark Leishman, especially if you're looking for a unique, if you're looking for a pivot, you're wanting to gain some leverage on people in this price range instead of going to Matthew Fitzpatrick. Cameron Smith, somebody I want to highlight as well. I like Cameron Smith this week, especially if this gets to be a short game fest, a short game contest. Cameron Smith's very darn good at the short game, chipping, playing around the green. I like Cameron Smith a lot this week. Not in terribly impressive open performance, but tied for 20th. Made the cut and then kind of bombed, I guess, on the weekend. Missed the cut in 17, but hey, previous winner this year on tour. I like where Cam Smith's at. I like all three of these guys, and you're going to get a lot of leverage using Cameron Smith, Mark Leishman, and Joaquin Niemann. So I like all three of these. If I had to put one over the other, I think I would use Niemann first, then Cameron Smith, and then Mark Leishman. But, I really want to highlight those three. I'm going to use Answer a lot. I'm just going to use Answer a lot. But But if you have a different feeling than I do on Answer, and you want to go elsewhere, I would go to these three. Fitzpatrick's going to play well. He's at 11.5%. He's going to play. He's probably going to play pretty well. This is where I'm picking my leverage, my unique in DFS this week. Moving to the low sevens, the three overwhelming chalk here. Daniel Berger at 13%. I love Daniel Berger. I'm always going to back Daniel Berger in a major. I just think he's a top tier talent that doesn't get that respect in among common or casual fans. I'll always back Daniel Berger when I can. If he's a chalky play, I'm certainly not going to use him. Harris English, amazing form right now. Not arguing that. I think he rated out very well in my model as well. Putts well, plays amazing in the wind, he plays his best when it's difficult. I understand why people are using him. I really do. I mean, look, the past 3 tournaments, all top 15s. 4 of his past 5 are top 15s, and he still made the cut at the PGA. But if he's the overwhelming chalk at 13.5% in this range, I will, him and Berger, I don't mind going elsewhere. But I understand completely if this is the chalk you're willing to eat, Harris English, not going to argue against you if you want to pick your leverage elsewhere. For me, and then the other chalk here is Brandon Grace at 12, a little over 12%. Again, just like English, I can't argue against Brandon Grace. Generally plays well in the wind. He's a South African. That's weird. This has here that wind is his worst. Interesting. There's a narrative that I kind of bought into, and it's not true there. And he's in great form though. Top 10 at the U.S. Open, top 5 at the Memorial, made the cut at the PGA. He won earlier on an alternate field event in Puerto Rico. So, yeah, I'm not going to argue against Brandon Grace. I'll just go elsewhere. The people I want to highlight in this range, in the mid to low sevens, Christian Bezuidenhout is a little bit more chalky than I was hoping. He's actually at 9.5%. I like Christian Bezuidenhout. If this becomes a short game contest like Cameron Smith, if this is a event that Bryson is going to do well, then Bezuidenhout is fucked. You're just putting it bluntly. He's fucked because he doesn't hit in the fairway. He doesn't hit it far. But this is why I like Bezuidenhout this week, because I don't think it's going to be a Bryson type event. I think you're going to have to scramble your way around here, and that's what Bezuidenhout does, and he does it great. So I really like Bezuidenhout this week. He's at 9.5% though. Garrick Higo, who's twice won on the European Tour and won earlier at the Palmetto on the PGA Tour. Garrick Higo right now is at 3%. That is surprising to me. So that's certainly a lot of leverage you're going to pick up if you're comfortable using Garrick Higo. I am. I don't know how much exposure I'll have to him, but I'm certainly going to use him. Now that I see he's only at 3%, let's add that star there. Gary Woodland, somebody I like this week as well. He's at 2%. I like Gary Woodland a lot. And a lot of this may be taking a narrative from the Pebble Beach U.S. Open win. But that week at Pebble Beach, you had to shape your shots. You had to hit it low. And that's when Gary Woodland kind of became known for his stinger. Just hitting it low, letting it run. Remember, and last time we talked about this on the initial research show. When Darren Clark won here in 2011, he was very open and admitted that he was comfortable hitting the ball 150 yards carrying and letting it run another 60 to 80 yards on the fairway and letting it just run up. So it sounds like from the course director there, course superintendent, that they've cut a lot of aprons, like 50 to 60 yards. So that style can absolutely play again this week. So I like Gary Woodland this week. Now he is certainly a high risk, high reward pick. There is just as much chance he withdraws or just goes 78. Thanks for your time. So he's the volatile option I like in this range. Other guys, Ian Poulter always plays well in Open Championships. Let's look at his Open Championship history here real quick. He's 3 for 4. He's tied for 14th that year. I would have thought he would have played well. Alex Noren is actually somebody that has played very darn well at Open Championships, and at the same price point. Yeah. So Alex Noren's at 9, a little under 10%. Ian Poulter is a little over 9%, so 9.7, 9.2, whatever. I'm definitely going to use Noren out of those two, but I'll have a little exposure to both. More so Noren, obviously. Oh, dang it. I did not mean to close that tab. Where was that? Tournament history. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's get back to the 7Ks. Russell Henley, 5%. Kokrak, somebody I like this week at 4.5%. Matt Wallace is at 4.5%. So, yeah, I think there are options down here that you're going to gain leverage over the Brandon Graces, the Harris English, the Daniel Bergers, if this is the area you want to choose to take your leverage. I'm going to take mine in this and in the upper 7, low 8. But, yeah, right, Bobby? Let's go answer, right? Somebody else here in the low 7s, Guido Migliozzi. I like this week. He's at 8%. He's been playing well. I like Migliozzi. I like Harmon. The stats rate out well for him. The statistics say he should play really, really well here. What worries me for Brian Harmon is his Open Championship performance in the past. 7,100, Brian Harmon. Well, I'm not a mathematics guru by any chance, but if you're 0 for 4, pretty sure that's bad. Pretty sure that's bad. So that's what scares me about Brian Harmon. The numbers say he should do great. The performance has said not so much. Actually, it said the opposite. He ain't worth the fuck. So, I don't know. That's where I'm kind of torn on Brian Harmon. I have him starred. I might try to have a little bit of exposure to him just to make sure I don't miss out in case the numbers are right. But I don't feel great about it. Let's see. I mean, Connors generally is he's been on the rise this year. Yeah, I don't know. Connor's only at 4%. What's his open performance been like? Connor, well, he's 0 for 1, so not much to be gained there, I don't think. Especially since it changes venues every year. Matt Kuchar is somebody who's had some success. Don't overlook Kuchar at 7,000. He's had some success. So if you want to go just on performance at Open Championships, him and Henrik Stenson. Now, I'm not advocating Henrik Stenson at all. His game is just nowhere to be found. Like, seriously. Like, did we put it in the attic? Where is it? Because it's not there right now. Quickly moving into the 6Ks, and then we'll get into the spreadsheet stuff. There is nobody that is considered chalky down here, with the exception of Sam Burns at 9.5. He's at 6,300. The only other somewhat chalky play is Lucas Herbe at 8%. I think that's how you pronounce it, Lucas Herbe. I believe he's French. Putts well, very well on bent grasses, which we have. He plays his best in the wind, and it's quite a stark contrast. Don't let the small bar here fool you. I mean, look at the y-axis. I mean, this is 2 strokes. I mean, he's gaining 1.4 strokes per round in the wind. That's really damn good. He's in good form lately. But before that, not good. So people are kind of gravitating towards that. I bet you on the wind narrative, on the bent narrative. I can understand it. He's at 8%. And then Sam Burns, for those of you who don't know, Sam Burns is a winner on the PGA Tour. He is 11th in my model at 6,300. Like, I would have figured he would have been a lot higher owned than 9.5%. So if he's only 9.5%, I'm absolutely going to use Sam Burns. I might curb the amount I'll use him just because he's somewhat chalky, but I actually figured that going in, just because he's 6,300 and he's a winner this year on tour. I mean, look, you got Troy Merritt at 43 or at 43rd in my ranking, and that's just because of the recent performance of the second in Rocket Mortgage, 36 of the Travelers. I mean, he did not have a good John Deere at all. He had a couple other top 10s a couple months back. I mean, he's in great form right now. It doesn't look like he's in great form just because of how bad the John Deere was, and 3 rough tournaments in here, which he still made the cut. He does play great in the wind, Troy Merritt, but he's the only other one that's even remotely usable in this range. And then Sam Burns is 11th in my rankings. So I completely understand why Sam Burns is the chalky option. I actually don't mind Chris Kirk, using him for DFS purposes this week. His best surface is bent. He generally doesn't play his best when the things get difficult. I understand that. If off the tee is not going to be too terribly important, I think he'll be okay. Again, I'm not advocating that he's going to be you go out and bet him to win. I'm not advocating that at all. For DFS at 6,400, I think you could do a lot worse. Clearly, a lot of red around here, and you want to avoid the Sam Burns chalk. That's where I'm getting. I don't mind Chris Kirk as a pivot at all down in this area. He's at 5%. Is there anyone even down here that's... I mean, I'm not going to use Dean Burmester, no. So, yeah, I mean, 6,300 is going to be the lowest I go. It's the lowest everyone else is going. Again, like I said, I don't mind Chris Kirk. But, yeah, there's not a lot down here. Not a lot down here at all. Taylor Gooch at 33rd in my rankings. But he doesn't hit a lot of fairways. He does a lot of other things great and well, but I don't know. I'm just not on Taylor Gooch. So Ches Reavie. Let's look at some past performances for these guys real quick. Ches Reavie, 0 for 2. And nope. Who's Chris Kirk? He's 0 for 1. It was back then. I'm willing to give this one a bit more forgiveness because for those of you that don't know Chris Kirk's story, he has battled alcoholism. And the reason why he has made a comeback, he has been sober for 2 years now, maybe longer. I mean, it's a really good comeback story. So, if nothing else, if you want to root sentimentally, Chris Kirk is someone definitely worthy of that for battling an addiction and all that. But he's 0 for 1. He hasn't played the Open since 2016. Not sure how much to glean from that. I have Emiliano Grillo starred. absolutely don't mind Griot at all. He's only at 3% right now. He's another one of those guys like Cameron Smith, like Christian Bezadenhout, plays very well around the green. Second in scrambling, 35th in 3-putt avoidance. So he's just not good at not good at par fours, which is obviously not good, and not good at avoiding bogeys, which isn't good. But so he's either parring or he's double bogeying or taking snowmen or whatever. So Griot is another option down here if you want to evade gain some leverage on the field. Keegan Bradley, I mean, it's always just going to be the putter that scares me for Keegan. It is what it is. Although he does apparently putt well on bent. Yeah. So he clearly doesn't putt well at all, but bent is by far his best. So yeah, it's just the putter just scares me with Keegan. But certainly, I mean, what's he at? I just saw him. Where'd he go? He's at 7%, so nothing extraordinary that would cause you to fade him or whatnot. But hopefully that gave you some good ideas for some DFS. And as always, guys, comment below who are you leaning, what are you thinking as we approach tee times over in Sandwich, England. I'm going to, while I have the web page focus up, I'm actually going to go to Wind Finder right now. I want Sandwich. Where did that go? So Sandwich Bay. There it is. All right, so we're looking here. Thursday tomorrow morning. They've got they have 15 mile an hour winds, and it looks like early morning is a lot of gusts. Up to 26. So here, this tells me that the PM wave has a pretty distinct advantage. I know the sustained winds are close, but the gusts are less, and they're closer to the sustained winds. So that tells me that the PM wave tomorrow has a pretty clear advantage. So something that a lot of people don't think about, or at least it seems like they don't think about, is stacking lineups on which half of the draw is going to get the better luck, essentially, in what the winds and what the weather is doing. So right now, I would put a check mark to the PM on Thursday. If we move to Friday, it looks like, let's see here, you've got the highest wind in the AM, but the gusts are consistent throughout the day. It's just lower Friday afternoon. So I think this kind of washes out, because you could almost argue that the AM is better. Even though the sustained winds are higher, there's a lot closer to the gusts as opposed to the PM wave, where they have lower sustained winds, but the gusts are further, they're further away from the sustained winds, where that can really throw a golfer off if they pick up a gust while their shot is in mid-flight. That's something you just can't control. So I'd almost argue that this is an AM advantage here. So you've got a check mark. I would put a fairly good sized check mark on the PM wave here and a slight check mark to the AM, which means that by what I'm seeing here with the Wind Finder, and by all means, if you see something different, go with your feelings. I would if you're going to stack lineups on a split of who's having the better half, you'll want to look at PM on Thursday, AM on Friday. So if we go to the leaderboard really quickly, we can try to find out who are some of those guys that we've talked about who are in the PM and then AM split. It looks like they aren't splitting the tee time. So let's look at just kind of later in the day. Thursday, it looks like we'll say 1 o'clock It looks like it's starting to die down. So let's say maybe we'll just use arbitrarily 11:30. Again, this is the kind of research you might want to do real quick or before you submit your final lineups, but we'll say 11:30, and that, again, that's just completely arbitrary. Of the guys we've talked about, you have Jason Day, if you're a believer in Jason Day. You have Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Mark Leishman, Matt Wallace, Colin Morikawa, Connors, Webb Simpson, who I like. Doesn't seem like a lot of people are on him. Terrell Hatton, I like a lot this week. Xander, Ricky, if you're a Ricky truther, Justin Thomas, Tommy Fleetwood, Adam Scott, Rory Reed. So here's the primetime coverage groups: Cameron Smith, Stinson, Kuchar, who we talked about, who's always had good performances at Open Championships. So that gives you some of the names we've talked about throughout the show that have that PM and then AM advantage. So if you want to stack lineups, it's not a clear outright 100%. Oh, it's obvious that the PM, Thursday PM, Friday AM split is clearly advantaged. But if you're going to generate 50 lineups, I think it's almost kind of worth looking at the stack maybe 10 to 15 times, at least having it in your mind and consciously thinking about it, that you have this PM AM split in your mind. And then as we look into Saturday, Sunday looks great. I mean, Sunday looks like nothing for Britain standards, for England standards. I mean, that's nothing. Saturday looks relatively calm as well, kind of like Thursday, in the sense of you've got sustains as high as 15, gusts up to 21. Earlier this week, guys, I'm telling you, there were sustains of 20 and gusts of 30. So it looks like it's calmed down over in Sandwich. And this is Sandwich Bay. Royal St. George's is in Sandwich, England. So just wanted to hit on that before we move to the spreadsheet. Give me 1 second while I change the view here and bring up the spreadsheet. There we go. So this is not different than the Fantasy National rankings that I have. You'll see here same stuff up here: 20% for approach and 15% bogey avoidance. I just brought it to a spreadsheet to kind of help with a couple of different things. First thing I want to talk about is the tiers. I don't particularly play tiers, but it's a fun way if you're not comfortable with DFS. Tiers is a great way to introduce yourself to daily fantasy in the golf realm. Pretty easy to pick up on. You don't have salary to worry about. You just have 6 tiers, and DraftKings gives you the guys or the options in each tier. So, for example, tier 1 this week is Jon Rahm, Dustin Johnson, and Rory, and that's it. Those are 3 guys. So when you try to make a team using in a tiers contest, it'll open up and it'll show you tier 1, and you pick one of the 3 guys, and that's how you start. You go literally through the tiers and pick the guy you want. So in tiers, it's quite obvious Jon Rahm's going to be my choice in tier 1. Considering the other 2, I actually have to scroll down the page. So I'm going to choose Jon Rahm if I'm playing in this hypothetical tiers contest. Tier 2, you've got you got Jordan Spieth, you've got Xander Schauffele, you've got Bryson, JT, Brooks. I thought there was one more. It doesn't look like there is. No. Okay, so you've got those 5 guys. I understand Brooks is rated pretty low in my system. I wouldn't discount him. And you have to think too, because there is a limited choice. I mean, if there's only 3 options in tier 1, well, you're going to have a lot of common commonality there because there's only 3 options. So you're going to have to find ways, subtle ways to be unique against the other contestants. If you're going just by pure, by my rankings, playing the best play, it's Rom and then Spieth. But I would have to think that's a very common start. I don't know where you'd want to pick your leverage in tiers. Like I said, I don't play tiers. So I would have to play tiers a little bit to understand what, how it, not necessarily how it works, but where you gain your advantages and all that stuff. But John Rahm's my top pick in tier 1. Jordan Spieth's my top pick in tier 2. You move to tier 3, you've got Patrick Reed, Louis Oosthuizen, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Victor Hovland, and Tony Finau. I actually kind of like Finau. I know he's not rated well in my in my model. I just kind of like Tony Finau this week. I think it'll be okay. But clearly, I would use Patrick Reed as number 2 in my model. I think on my model, I think I would give him the best chance to win. Like, I like Abraham Answer, and I know I haven't picked number 1 in my statistical model, so I should, people thinking, hey, why don't you picking Abraham Answer to win because he's first in your model? You gotta understand this is more of trying to show who has value, especially in a DFS format, or guys that you might not have heard of, or sleepers and all that stuff. This isn't a pure, like, okay, I think Abraham Answer is going to win. I think Patrick Reed's going to come in second, Louis third, yada, yada, yada. Now, certainly there is a level of, I think Patrick Reed is going to perform, considerably better than, say, Rory, just because of where he is in the rankings. But it's more used to kind of compare salary and who does well at what, and so on and so forth. Because I admit, this is by no means perfect. That's why I'm not winning outright bets every week. But to get back to the tiers, tier 3, clearly my pick is Patrick Reed. Tier 4, you start with it's Berger, Terrell Hatton, Webb Simpson, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Paul Casey, and Will Zalatoris. I'm out on Will Zalatoris. It's kind of like Hovland in that matter. I believe Hovland was in this tier as well. Fitzpatrick, there's Webb, Terrell Hatton. Nope, I guess Hovland's. There's Hovland. Where is he? Oh, he's in tier 3. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm out on Hovland just because he's a wild card. I'm the same with Zalatoris. I don't think this is a good place for Zalatoris. If I'm going in tier 4, as much as I like Berger, I think he's going to be chalky. I like Hatton. I'm actually probably going to go Webb. If I'm going to get leverage or be unique, I think I would choose tier 4 here and choose Webb. But certainly nothing wrong with these two. If you want to get, take the best play, maybe find your uniqueness elsewhere, or just take the best play and roll with it. I think I would choose Webb to just try to be unique and get higher finishes in the contests. Tier 5, I don't think I have to explain it. For me, it's Abraham Answer. He's the top-rated player in my model. But the other options you have, Adam Scott, Joaquin Niemann, who I actually don't mind here. If you don't want to go with Abraham Answer, you have a gut feeling that Abraham Answer is not going to do well or whatnot. You see something in the stats that you don't like, that you think will translate to him not playing well. I actually really don't mind Joaquin Niemann. I like Niemann this week. Scheffler, I like Scheffler this week. I like Niemann a whole lot more than Scheffler, but Scheffler's not a bad play in my mind either. I'm out on Lowry. We went through his past performances. He's won for his last 5. The one happened to be a win, but he missed the cut the previous 4. So I'm out on Lowry. So I think I would go Answer heavily as my choice in the tier 5. Certainly don't mind Niemann, and I certainly don't mind Scheffler, but that would be a heavy 1, a very heavy 2, and then clearly 3rd in Scheffler. And then once you get to tier 6, Sam Burns, Cameron Smith, Jason Day, Lee Westwood, Mark Leishman, Sergio Garcia. I've talked about. Oh, I'm sorry. This last one's Phil. Okay. All right. You know what? If you want to just have fun and go sentimental, then go Phil. I would never. I know he just won the PGA earlier this year. I'm not doing Phil. This one's actually tier 6 is actually pretty interesting for me because we talked about how Sam Burns, and this is the beauty of tiers also, because we talked about how Sam Burns is such a steal or a value at 6,300. Well, in this, you don't have to worry about prices. You just pick who you think's the best player in this tier. So if we're going by strictly that criteria, now I understand I have Sam Burns, the highest ranked in this tier. I would actually go Cameron Smith in tier 6 if I'm playing who I think is just going to finish the highest on the leaderboard at the end of the tournament. Both of these are going to be good plays. I imagine they would be fairly chalky in tier 6. Jason Day we talked about. I'm not there. Lee Westwood, good story. He's played well this year. I can certainly see him playing well. I just don't have any strong feelings for or against Lee Westwood. Talked about Mark Leishman. I'm okay using Mark Leishman in tier 6. I would much rather prefer using the other two guys. And then Sergio, no, no. So that's a quick breakdown of how tiers work and what I would do in the tiers contest. And guys, anytime you all want some help or want some explanation on how DFS works or your outright betting, how what kind of odds you're getting and all that stuff, by all means, reach out to me, comment below. I mentioned Bobby last night. He's in chat. He reached out for help on a office pool that they do. I'm assuming for majors, but there was one for the Open Championship. He reached out, asked for some help on some rankings. Guys, I'm more than willing to help. Just reach out, comment. I'll always get to those questions. Might not get to it immediately, but I'll always get to them. So I'm going to hide these columns here in Excel and try to make a couple of lineups here really quickly. Let's do what we think might be a stars and scrubs approach and a balanced approach. So let me sort this model real quick by price. That way it's just easier for me. Sort by... it did this last week. All right. Let's highlight all this and then sort by column of salary. Largest to smallest. See, I don't know why it's doing that. Give me 1 second. I apologize. It doesn't like these merge cells up here at the top for whatever reason. See? Anyway, so let's try to go and think back, and let me try this one more time because this is just infuriating. Sort. There we go. That's what I wanted. Sort by salary, largest to smallest. We get it? We got it. Haha. Sometimes your boy just needs a little help. All right, so let's try first with this stars and scrubs approach, which looks to be the common build. When I say stars and scrubs, generally you're loading up your team up top with two, maybe even trying to squeeze in two in a I'll say 2.5 of the top tier players, and then just find guys at the bottom of the price board that you think just won't shit the bed. So if we're going to do a stars and scrubs here real quickly, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I just think John Rahm's the best play here. Don't worry about this column. This is just kind of for me. This is these are my rankings where I have them ranked, and honestly, I don't mind hiding this for you if that's confusing Or if you want me to keep it, I will. Actually, I'll just keep it just in case people want to see it. With John Rahm, average WX, yeah, that should be working. I don't know why that's not. On his V9, that's working. Count FW, 1 to 3, 8. Interesting. That should be averaging that. Frustrating. He's angry. All right. Well, we can go by this number here. Remember, we have 50,000. So if John Rahm is our start, we can't go Rahm and like Brooks. I mean, we can, but then we're scrounging like 3 players all the way down here, and I don't think we want to do that. But because we're fitting the highest priced person in the whole contest on our team, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to use Sam Burns. Let's just go ahead and put Sam Burns in there, and if he ends up, if we can upgrade Sam Burns, we're definitely going to. But I think if we're gonna do a stars and scrubs approach, let's do Rahm and Burns. My initial thought was to try to get to like Xander, maybe even DJ, only because DJ was the pivot play in this range. You know how much I love Patrick Reed, but he's chalky. If I'm making what I think is just going to be the best team, I'd go Rahm and Spieth. But I don't know if we'll have the salary to do Dustin Johnson. Let's try it and see how close we can get this to fit. So we've already used up more than half of our salary. We have 22,000 left. We're gonna have to squeeze, and we're gonna have to go to 69 or 70, like 6,900 or 7,000. I know these guys are rated well in my model. I like Alex Noren a lot this week. Let's try to fit Alex Noren as our second to last. So we're at 35.2, so that means, sorry, that formula should really be working, and I'm really upset that it's not. 70, oh, wait, that's not what I wanted. 50,000 minus 35.2. God, so we're at 14.8, and then we divide that by 2, so we're at 7,400 per. 7,400 per player. So we could go like Answer at 76, and then we'd have to find a 72 Brandon Grace. I actually don't mind that at all. So if we were going to do a stars and scrubs approach, we would have something similar to this. Now, granted, this is rather chalky, and you would want to perhaps find some pivots other places. Actually, Answer isn't too much off of that pivot, but this is an idea of what you would get building a stars and scrubs approach, and I actually kind of like that lineup, to be honest with you. I understand I have DJ 54th in my model, but it's just if he's going to be a pivot, he's as talented as anybody in this field. I certainly don't mind this. I actually don't mind this lineup at all. So if you plug this lineup in, let me know how it goes. Honestly, please. I'm curious. I might actually do it in a few contests. So, yeah. Brandon Grace is fairly chalky though, so you might want to play around with the numbers and figure out maybe somebody else around this range. Maybe if you want to be off Answer, you go higher or lower and then adjust Grace as needed be. But I like the composition of this team. I like the players in this team. I'm certainly going to have exposure to all 6 of these guys. in my teams. So yeah, so there's an example of a stars and scrubs build for this week. Now, if we're going to go with a more balanced build, generally balanced build means that you're not scrounging down into the what people consider the dregs, or the absolute bottom of the leaderboard. Generally, they're going to top out at maybe a high 6 or a low 7 or whatever. Let's bottom our team out at 7,100 or so, and only because I want to use different guys. Because I could absolutely just say, oh, let's take the last example and put Brandon Grace as our lowest. Let's just try to use a couple of different guys here. Let's go with Guido Migliozzi, who I like this week. Let's go Guido as the bottom of our lineup, which obviously means we're not going to use John Rahm, because we would have to really dig in. If we're not going to put Sam Burns in with John Rahm, we can't end our team at Guido. This is really bothering me why that's not working. W, 50,000 minus V9, it should be working. Oh, that's why I don't have the count if. Where was the count if? I thought I had the count if somewhere. Sorry, this is the data guy being really, really upset at himself for not, 1, having it prepared, and 2, blah. All right, if we're going to end our team with Guido, let's start with, we'll go full balance. Let's just start our team with Jordan Spieth. So we have no 10K guy, which is fine. And it's not to say that Jordan Spieth can't win the tournament. He absolutely can. Now the question is, do we want to be a kind of like a pure balance team? Do we want to be a little top-ended balance? If we want to be top-ended balance, I'm going to go Louis. If we're going to be purely balance, I'm going to go Patrick Reed. There's certainly an argument that you could build a balanced team and use both of them, but then you're going to be a bit more stars and scrubs when you're going Spieth, Louis, Reed, and then you're going to have people like Migliozzi, Noren, and Grace. And I kind of want to try to build a more balanced lineup than that, because we basically did that with the stars and scrubs. I'm going to skip Louis and go to Patrick Reed as our second in on this balanced build team. So if we go from 88, now let's generally you can come down here, and I mentioned I like Webb Simpson. Let's try Webb in here. So we're at 33.9, so at 34 you've got 7,000 per, so it looks like we wouldn't even be able to do that. So we're going to have to come down lower than Webb. Let's I'm not a big believer in Adam Scott. Let's use Tommy Fleetwood. Now we're at 33.6. This is just going to be easier for me to pull up the damn calculator. 5 minus 33.6. So now we're at 8,200 per player. So now we could actually start making, some quality stuff here, I think. Why was I so off on that number? Let's try Webb in there again and see what's going on here. So you're at 33.9. So whoops, didn't want to do that. Well, there's a sneak peek at my betting card. So if we go, damn it, it's still up. 50,000 minus 33.9. 16.1. So yeah, now we have 8,000 per. Okay, so that's what I was doing wrong. If we have 8,000 per, we could go Tommy, which now leaves us with 81. If you're comfortable with Adam Scott, you could use Adam Scott. Let's jump down. I know I used Answer and he's number one in my model, but again, I just want to highlight different people. If we go someone like Daniel Berger, you've got $700 left on the table, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's going to keep you unique in of itself. If you leave $100 on the table and just build a lineup of 49,900, that's going to make you unique enough. Because a lot of people see you have 50,000, you have to spend that 50,000. You don't. You absolutely don't have to spend that 50,000. So that would make you unique enough. But if you wanted to distribute up this 700, like you could bring Migliozzi up quite a bit. You got Berger at 74. Shoot, you can make Berger your last man in. Come up if you want to spend it all on raising your last guy. You could go to someone like Cameron Smith, who I've talked about. There's your even 50,000 right there. And that's a team that's on paper should do pretty darn well. Pretty chalky, but it's pretty darn competitive, I would think. So, like I said, I hope that gives you a good idea on the different styles of lineups. You have your stars and scrubs, you have your balance, you have your mix between the two. Hope you got some good information on your DFS lineups this week, some sleepers, some pivots, some ideas on guys to use, guys to fade, and whatnot. I'm going to end it with the extended sneak peek, we'll call it. I'm going to show you my betting card for this week. With it being a double tournament, let's have some fun. So at the Open Championship, I've got Patrick Reed to win at 40-1. I've got Tony Finau to win at 45-1. I've got Abraham Answer to win at 66. Kokrak and Alex Norn to win at 80. Stuart Sink at 130. Gary Woodland at 150. And early in the week, I took an absolute dart throw on Eric Van Rooyen at 200-1. Now, Nick, you didn't mention Eric Van Rooyen at all in the show. What are you talking about? Well, let me show you. I think he's like 60. He should be around in here somewhere because he's not expensive. Now it's just going to be easier to search his name. Let's go into, well, no, that would cause me to do a lot of different stuff. Data, filter, and we're going to look for Eric Van Rooyen. You didn't mention Eric Van Rooyen at all. He's near the bottom of your rankings. What's going on? Well, he generally plays okay off the tee, and I think that's going to be a little bit of a factor. He's okay at putting. I am going to switch over to this web page focus here real quick and show you what I'm talking about. And again, this is a complete dart throw at 200-1. Tournament history. Eric Van Rooyen. I'll know it when I see it. I forgot to look what his price was. There it is. 7,000 even. He's got 2 top 20s. Nick, that's not a win. That's not even close to competing. Well, Eric Van Rooyen has withdrawn from the past 3 tournaments. I'm going on one simple narrative. His putting thinks it's really bad here on bent. Remember to think about the y-axis. This is only 0.2 of a stroke. It looks bad, compared to the other two. He's basically break even on POA. Bermuda, he's only at 1/10. This is 0.2 of a stroke. So he averages losing 1 stroke a tournament on bent. If that's volatile and he actually gains strokes this week, that's something. He plays best when it gets difficult. I don't think you can argue that the Open Championship is difficult. This kind of scares me in the wind. He's not great in the wind. And when I made this bet, it was forecasted to be a lot windier. So now that the winds have calmed down a little bit, I'm not going to say I'm confident because that's the complete kiss of death jinx. But there have been flashes here. His irons can get hot. He can play well off the tee. He can chip from around the green. Again, at 200-1, I understand this is a complete dart though. If he puts if he puts a 2 strokes gained off the tee with a 2 strokes gained approach, he might have to do a 3 around the green. But we've seen he can do these numbers. It's asking a lot. But if he puts them together, he's at least shown the ability to do it. So 200 to 1, I'll take that chance, especially since he's got 2 top 20s at 2 prior opens. At 200 to 1, I'll take that dart throw. Why not? I've done stupider things, trust me. Let's just bring this back up here. I'm going to need to switch to the Excel focus again real quick. Sorry, guys. Transition to that. All right. So, and Eric Van Rooyen at 200 to 1. Now, again, not playing in the wind, these bets could, bad joke intended, be just thrown in the wind and thrown away. To top 20 at the Open, I've got Harris English and Webb Simpson at 2 to 1. The Zadenhout, Grace, and Neiman at 2.5 to 1. I've got Brian Harmon and Russell Henley at 3.5 to 1. Stuart Sink at 4.5 to 1. Migliozzi and Gary Woodland at 5.5 to 1. Van Rooyen at 7.5 to 1, and Brett Snedeker at 9 to 1. You'll notice that a lot of the win bets I also have as top 20s. It's just if I'm betting a guy to win and he's got decent enough odds to top 20, you might as well just combine them. Or top 10 or top 5, whatever risk you're willing to take. I just do top 20s. So there's my Open Championship part of the card. We come over to the Barbasol. I'm betting the favorite, the absolute favorite of the tournament, and I'm getting 16 to 1. That by definition to me is value. So I'm betting Seamus Power, who's the favorite of the tournament, at 16 to 1. Adam Schenk, who just got through playing very, very well at the John Deere Classic. He's in great form at 30 to 1. Sahith Theegala is somebody who's on the rise. He's played in a couple of majors this year. He's played in some PGA Tour events. I won't say he's held his own because he's obviously hasn't been in the top 5 or whatnot, but he's held his own, shown flashes of ability. At 50 to 1 in an alternate field event, I'm okay with it. And if you checked out the show last night on the Barbasol event, NJ DeFew was my 6th ranked player in that field, and I'm getting 130 to 1 to win. Sure, it's a long shot, but 6th ranked player in a model at 130 to 1, definition of value. And then to complete the card, I've got Wilco Nienaber to top 20 at 2 to 1, Sahith at 2 to 1, Wes Roach to top 20 at 4 to 1, and MJ DeFew to top 20 at the Barbasol at 5 to 1. Guys, that'll do it for the Open Championship DFS Tactics Show. Again, another look at my betting card, as I always do at the end of Wednesday nights. Guys, comment below and throughout the weekend. How are you doing? What'd you end up going with? Did you go stars and scrubs? Did you go balance? Who'd you have the most exposure to? Who you were fading? I want to hear from you. I want to hear about your successes. Even when I fail, I want to hear about your successes. I really, really do. I will absolutely shout them out and give you all the credit in the intros. Just let me know. Guys, smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. This weekend, whether it's the Open Championship, the Barbasol, and every other weekend, may all your bets be profitable.